Alright, I don't usually post here, but I feel like I need to get this story out of my system. It's weird, emotional, and honestly still a little raw for me. People usually think of Benjamin Franklin as that old guy with glasses who flew a kite and discovered electricity, right? That's what I thought too. But for me, Franklin became more than just some historical figure. He turned into this mirror, I guess, reflecting my own messy life back at me. It started when I picked up this little English learning book, Learn English with Stories Level 3. It had Franklin's life in simplified language, almost like a story for kids. At first, I was just reading to brush up on my English, but damn, the more I read, the more hooked I got. Franklin wasn't just smart. He was ambitious, stubborn, and reckless. He ran away from home at 17 with barely any money. That blew my mind. See, I had just lost my job around that time. I was 32, broke, and my girlfriend had walked out on me 2 weeks earlier. I remember lying on my crappy mattress in my tiny apartment, thinking, if Franklin could start over with nothing, maybe I can too. It wasn't motivation exactly. It was more like a challenge echoing inside me. But here's the twist. The more I read, the more I realized that Franklin's life wasn't just about progress. It was about betrayal too. His brother turned on him. His colleagues tried to undercut him. And every time, he had to swallow the hurt, rebuild, and push forward. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, I was about to live through something eerily similar. And I was right. So here's where Franklin's story started to feel way too close to home. In the book, I learned that Franklin worked for his older brother James in a printing shop. At first, Franklin admired him, but then James treated him like dirt, yelling at him, keeping him down, refusing to give him credit. That betrayal from his own brother? Man, it hit me in the gut, because I had my own James. My older brother and I had been tight when we were kids, but when I lost my job, I swallowed my pride and went to him for help. He owned a small tech business, and I thought maybe he'd let me do some basic work. Nothing fancy, just a chance to get back on my feet. He said yes, but here's the thing. The way he treated me was almost word for word like what Franklin went through. Constant criticism, zero recognition, making me feel like I was useless even though I was pulling 12-hour shifts. One night, after working late, I overheard him on the phone. He was laughing, saying something like, "Yeah, I only keep him around because Mom would kill me otherwise. He's basically free labor." That stung worse than anything. I can still remember the mix of heat and cold rushing through my body at the same time. Shock first, then anger, then this deep sadness I can't even explain. My own brother. I felt like Franklin must have felt when James beat him in the shop and tried to stop him from writing under his own name. It was like history was replaying itself, just with laptops instead of printing presses. That night, lying awake, I had to make a choice. Do I stay and eat dirt just to survive, or do I walk away with nothing but my pride? I didn't know it then, but that decision would spiral into something way bigger than I ever expected. The next morning, I went into the office pretending nothing was wrong, but my mind was burning. Every time my brother barked at me for some tiny mistake, I kept replaying his phone call in my head. Basically free labor. Like I wasn't even a person to him, just some tool he could brag about using. Franklin had his own breaking point, when James straight up refused to give him credit for writing those clever essays under a fake name. Instead of admitting Franklin was talented, James got jealous and shut him down. Reading that had already pissed me off, but now I felt like I was living it. That day, after hours of meaningless tasks, I snapped. My brother dumped another pile of urgent work on my desk, and I just stared at him. Something inside me finally said, "No more." I told him I was done. Just like that. No notice, no plan, nothing. He smirked, like he expected me to come crawling back. He even said, "Good luck out there. You won't last a week." I packed up my stuff, walked out of his office, and felt this weird mix of terror and freedom. My hands were shaking, my chest tight, but I also felt lighter. I imagined Franklin sneaking out of Boston, running away to Philadelphia with barely a coin in his pocket. That was me now, no job, no savings, no clue what to do next. But here's the kicker. Walking home, I got this text from a friend. It said, "Hey, saw your brother last night at the bar. You're not gonna like this." And just like that, betrayal showed up again. This time in a way I never could have imagined. I almost didn't open the text. I was already exhausted, mentally fried from quitting, physically drained from working those endless shifts. But curiosity got the better of me. My friend had sent a photo. It was my brother, at a bar, sitting way too close to my ex-girlfriend. Yeah, the same ex who had walked out on me just weeks before. They weren't just chatting, either. His arm was around her, and she was leaning in, smiling like she used to with me. I froze right there on the sidewalk. People passed me, bumping shoulders, but I couldn't move. My stomach dropped, and I swear I felt the air leave my lungs. Anger came first, hot, explosive, the kind that makes you want to punch through concrete. But then the sadness rolled in, this heavy wave that made me feel like my body weighed 1,000 pounds. Betrayal has layers, you know? It wasn't just my brother stabbing me in the back again. It was her too. Someone I trusted, someone I loved. And together, that combo was brutal. Franklin's story came to mind again. He had mentors and allies who turned against him, people who used him for their own gain. Reading about it, I thought, damn, that must have sucked. Living it myself? Different level. I remember sitting on my bed that night, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out if I should confront them or just cut them both out. The rage wanted revenge. The sadness wanted answers. But a small, quiet part of me just wanted peace. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. I wanted to see how far they'd go. I never thought I'd be the type to spy on someone. Honestly, I used to laugh at people who did. But after that photo, something in me snapped. I had to know the truth, not just a blurry picture or secondhand story. I wanted proof. So a few nights later, I went to the same bar where the picture was taken. I sat in the back corner, hoodie up, pretending to scroll on my phone. My heart was racing like I was about to commit a crime. And then, boom, there they were. My brother and my ex, walking in together, laughing like they'd been doing it for years. I watched as he ordered her drink without even asking, like he already knew what she wanted. My chest tightened, because that used to be our thing. The worst part? They didn't even try to hide it. His hand was on her back. She leaned on his shoulder. It was out in the open. That stung more than the secret photo. It was like they didn't even respect me enough to keep it quiet. I left before they could see me. Walking home, I was furious. But in a strange way, I also felt relieved. At least I knew. No more wondering, no more guessing. The betrayal was real, undeniable. Franklin popped into my head again. When he first arrived in Philadelphia, he looked ridiculous, dirty, broke, carrying bread under each arm. People probably laughed at him, but he didn't let it destroy him. He kept moving forward. I clung to that thought, even though part of me still wanted to burn my brother's world to the ground. That night, I made a vow. If Franklin could start from nothing and rebuild, so could I. But first, I needed to cut them both out of my life, for good. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes from barely sleeping. My mind kept looping the image of them together. It felt like a punch in the gut every time. But I knew one thing. I couldn't keep dragging myself through that misery. So I did something brutal but necessary. I blocked both of them. My brother, my ex-phone, social media, email, gone. It felt cold, almost like deleting parts of my own life, but I needed that silence. Of course, the silence wasn't peace at first. It was loneliness. Nights were the worst. I'd stare at my ceiling and think about all the memories we used to share. With my brother, it was childhood stuff, bike rides, video games, stupid jokes. With her, it was late-night talks and road trips. Cutting them off was like amputating a limb. But slowly, that space gave me something else, breathing room. For the first time in months, I could actually hear my own thoughts instead of their voices. Franklin's story kept circling in my head. After breaking away from his brother, he wandered into Philadelphia with no plan, no family, and no friends. But he still found a way to survive. He worked odd jobs, met strangers who helped him, and little by little, built a life. I realized that's what I had to do. Start small. Survive first. Then figure out how to grow. But here's where it got strange. Just when I thought I was finally free of my brother's shadow, something unexpected happened. Someone reached out to me who changed everything. A week after I cut them both off, I was sitting in my apartment eating cold noodles straight from the container when my phone buzzed. New message. I almost ignored it, assuming it was spam, but then I saw the name. It was my brother's business partner. The message was short. I think you deserve to know what's going on. Call me. My stomach flipped. At first, I thought it was some setup, like maybe my brother wanted to reel me back in. But curiosity ate at me until I finally dialed the number. He didn't waste time. Look, he said, I don't know what your brother told you, but he's been lying to a lot of people, including me. He went on to explain that my brother had been siphoning money from the business, using fake invoices, pocketing extra cash, covering his tracks with quick excuses. And the kicker? He'd been bragging about how he was going to take the company solo and leave his partner high and dry. I sat there in shock. Betrayal on top of betrayal. Not only was he with my ex, but he was also screwing over the one guy who trusted him enough to build a business together. It was like watching Franklin's story play out again. How people in power tried to manipulate and cheat. How ambition twisted into something darker. The partner paused and then said something I'll never forget. You're not the only one he's betrayed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? My mind was spinning. Do I stay out of it, keep my distance, and protect what little peace I had found? Or do I step back into the fire and expose him? That night, I couldn't sleep. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just sad, I was standing at a crossroads. I wish I could say I ignored it, that I stayed on my path of healing and let my brother dig his own grave. But that question, what are you going to do about it, kept echoing in my head. So I made a choice. I was going to expose him. The next day, I met his business partner at a dingy little diner. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of invoices, bank statements, emails, the whole scheme laid out in black and white. My brother hadn't just been pocketing cash. He'd been using the business account to wine and dine my ex trips, hotel rooms, expensive dinners. All under the company name. Seeing it spelled out like that made my blood boil. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft, manipulation, humiliation. And I was tangled in it whether I liked it or not. The partner wanted to go to the authorities, but he also wanted me to back him up. He said, if you testify to how he treated you at work, it strengthens the case. Shows a pattern. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at that folder. My chest was tight, my hands shaking. Part of me wanted revenge, to watch him lose everything the way he made me lose everything. But another part of me hesitated. This was my brother. Blood. The same kid I used to play baseball with in the backyard. Franklin had faced this kind of moral mess too. When people turned on him, he didn't always strike back. Sometimes he just walked away and built something better. But I wasn't Franklin. I didn't know if I had that kind of strength. By morning, I made my choice. I would stand with the partner. I would testify. And that decision set off a chain reaction I never saw coming. Once the decision was made, things moved fast. The partner filed paperwork, sent evidence to the authorities, and looped in a lawyer. I felt like I was standing on a train track with the engine barreling toward me, too late to back away. When word finally reached my brother, he exploded. He showed up at my apartment unannounced, pounding on the door so hard my neighbors peeked out into the hallway. I didn't open, but I could hear him shouting through the door. You're dead to me. You think you can betray me? You're nothing without me. The irony of him accusing me of betrayal nearly made me laugh. But honestly, it just made my stomach turn. This was the guy I grew up with, who taught me how to ride a bike, who once shared his Halloween candy with me when I dropped mine. And now he sounded like a stranger, rabid, cornered, dangerous. The authorities started their investigation. Meanwhile, the whispers spread. Friends called, texting things like, "Dude, what's going on with your brother? He says you're trying to ruin his life." The betrayal hit all over again. He was spinning his story, painting me as the villain. And some people actually believed him. Losing the support of people I thought were friends cut almost as deep as losing him. I felt like Franklin must have felt when he first printed opinions that pissed off powerful people. Isolated, misunderstood, like the whole city was against him. Except this wasn't the 1700s. It was my actual life imploding in real time. One night, after the stress nearly broke me, I made another decision. I wasn't just going to be reactive. I was going to start building something of my own, like Franklin did after cutting ties with his brother. It wouldn't be easy. But if my brother was fire, I had to become water. While my brother was busy trying to smear my name, I decided to do the one thing he never expected. I started over. I pulled out an old notebook I used to jot down ideas in back when I still had hope. It was filled with half-baked business plans, random sketches, and quotes I liked. One line I'd copied from Franklin jumped out at me. Energy and persistence conquer all things. Corny? Maybe. But I clung to it like a lifeline. I started small. I took freelance gigs, things nobody else wanted. Fixing busted laptops, designing ugly websites, writing product descriptions for shady e-commerce stores. The pay was peanuts, but every dollar I earned felt like mine. No brother hovering over me. No one calling me free labor. At night, I worked on building my own project, a small online service for local businesses that couldn't afford the big tech firms. Nothing flashy, just practical. Something that I controlled. Meanwhile, the investigation into my brother deepened. The business partner kept me updated, and the more evidence stacked up, the clearer it became. My brother was sinking. Fast. And here's the unexpected part. I didn't feel joy. No satisfaction, no revenge high. Just emptiness. Watching him self-destruct didn't fix the damage he'd done to me. It didn't give me back my trust, or my peace, or my sense of family. Instead, I realized something. I couldn't rebuild my life just by tearing his down. I had to build because I wanted to live, not because I wanted him to lose. That shift, quiet as it was, felt like the first real step forward. Months passed. My freelance gigs turned into steady clients, and my small online service started picking up traction. I was finally beginning to feel stable. Solid, even. Like Franklin in Philadelphia, slowly carving out a life with his own hands. Then the news came. My brother had been caught. The authorities had enough evidence to charge him with embezzlement and fraud. His business partner called me, saying, "He asked about you today. Said you ruined his life." I didn't respond. I didn't want to. But a few days later, he showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door cautiously, and there he was, disheveled, eyes wide, a mix of anger and desperation written all over his face. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said, voice shaking. I didn't know how to handle things. For a second, I felt something stir. Part of me wanted to yell, to slap him, to make him feel every ounce of betrayal he'd caused me. But I didn't. I just looked at him, really looked. "You made your choices," I said quietly. "I made mine." And that was it. He left, and I didn't follow. I didn't chase him. Watching him walk away, knowing that justice, whatever form it took, was catching up to him, I realized something crucial. Franklin didn't waste his time hating people who tried to hold him back. He focused on his work, on building a better life. That's what I needed to do too. For the first time in months, I felt a strange calm. After that final confrontation, life didn't magically become perfect. There were still moments when I doubted myself, nights when loneliness crept in, and random reminders of my brother and my ex that stung like fresh wounds. But I started to rebuild. I upgraded my little apartment, painted the walls, planted a few herbs on the windowsill, small things, but they made it feel like my space again. I invested time in friendships I'd neglected, people who didn't betray me, people who reminded me that not everyone was out to use me. I also kept working on my project. Slowly it grew. Local businesses trusted me, and I found pride in knowing that the success was mine alone. It wasn't instant glory, but it was real. Every time I sent a finished website or fixed a client's issue, I remembered Franklin building his printing business from scratch. That sense of accomplishment became addictive. And the lessons? They hit hard, but they stuck. Betrayal will happen, even from people you trust the most. You can't control other people, only your response. Start small, focus on what you can build, and let everything else fall away. The emotional weight didn't vanish overnight, but slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Stronger, wiser, ready for whatever came next. Just when I thought the storm had passed, life threw another curveball. But this time, it wasn't terrible. A client I'd helped with a website referred me to a friend who needed a more complex system built for their small business. It was challenging, more than anything I'd done before, but I nailed it. Word started spreading. Suddenly, my tiny freelance hustle was turning into something real, a business that could sustain me without leaning on anyone else. And here's the ironic part. The chaos my brother caused actually helped me. Because I'd been pushed out of my comfort zone, forced to start over, I was ready for opportunities one might have ignored before. I had resilience I didn't know I had, the kind of grit Franklin wrote about, the kind that comes from being knocked down and rising anyway. Even more unexpectedly, I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away. Seeing them, talking about everything that happened, I realized I wasn't alone. People still cared. Life wasn't just about betrayal and loss. It was also about the small, quiet victories and the people who stick by you. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had agency in my own life again. By this point, I had lived through more betrayal, anger, and heartbreak than I thought one person could endure. My brother, my ex, even the friends who doubted me. Every one of them left a mark. But I realized something crucial. Those marks didn't have to define me. Reading Franklin's story over and over, I finally understood why his life had inspired me in the first place. It wasn't just his intelligence or his inventions. It was his persistence, his ability to turn setbacks into stepping stones. When people betrayed him, he didn't spiral forever. He used it to fuel his growth. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. I wrote down what happened, how I felt, what I wanted my life to look like. Slowly, clarity emerged. Betrayal teaches you who people really are, but it also teaches you who you really are. And I liked the person I was becoming. Resilient, cautious but hopeful, willing to build my own path no matter what obstacles arose. I also realized forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about me. I didn't need to hate my brother or my ex forever. I just needed to let go so I could keep moving forward. By embracing that mindset, I felt lighter. I felt free. Here's the thing I learned. The hard way. Life will throw betrayal at you, often from the people you trust the most. Family, friends, lovers, it doesn't matter. It hurts, it blindsides you, and it shakes your sense of self. But Franklin's story kept me grounded. He didn't let betrayal stop him. He kept building, kept learning, kept moving. For me, that meant cutting toxic people out, starting small with my work, and trusting myself again. It meant letting go of anger, not to forgive them, but to free myself. It meant embracing uncertainty and learning that rebuilding doesn't have a timeline. Every website I designed, every client I helped, every small victory reminded me that progress is possible, even from zero. So, my advice to anyone going through something like this: acknowledge your feelings. Shock, anger, sadness, they're valid. Don't bottle them up. Decide your next step deliberately. Don't act in the heat of the moment unless safety is an issue. Build something that's yours. Even small wins matter. They rebuild confidence faster than anything else. Let go of the ones who hurt you. Holding on prolongs the pain. Keep moving. Persistence is everything. The future isn't written by betrayal. It's written by your response. Looking back, I realize my life isn't perfect, but it's mine. I survived betrayal, heartbreak, and uncertainty, and I'm still here. Stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever comes next. Just like Franklin did.